welcome back to the second part to the Angelian lectures. I'm going to argue in this second lecture that the UFO phenomenon has remained remarkably consistent and unchanged over the millennia. Contrary to such famous academics as Jacques Vallée, this artifact does not mask and shape its intentions according to the cultural environment or social mores. Neither is it a type of transient force morphing from fairies, angels and jinn to the super-technological space-age beings defined in the modern idiom as extraterrestrial. This, I would suggest, is a defective argument and implies that the Earth is little more than a giant playground for archonic forces that are beyond the comprehension of mankind. A type of scam of megalithic proportions, eternal tricksters belonging to a transient and hidden society that disappears into thin air and originates from another realm that cannot be seen. So, essentially, as I argued in the first lecture, that the alien phenomenon can be identified to angelic sailors which originate from heaven, and therefore, in reality, this agency itself has changed very little. Now, rather and more complex, these entities are interdimensional and have physical bodies. They can manipulate time and the fabric of space. So in this respect, they are interdimensional. Because they have control over time and therefore they can manipulate space itself, the physical parameters of space. And interconnected to this is the manipulation of the mind, the body and the spirit. So they are in this respect interdimensional. But this interdimensional force actually comes from a physical nuts and bolts reality. The evidence to date suggests that they are an advanced spacefaring race that have seeded many planets, and is an assertion based primarily upon the study of etymology. This phenomenon does not arise from the borders of the cosmic mind, a psychology that breaches our physical confines and interacts with humans, and neither is it nebulous in design. It is a well-organized, efficient and methodical force, and is a force that has clear objectives. So this force is impinging upon our lives in terms of our reality. It instituted governments, it instituted politics. There is this interaction or relationship between humanity and the angelic host. Now, to emphasize, the fairy, angel and jinn all have a uniformity of origin which appertains to heaven, and in each of these cases their derivation are traced from a heavenly vessel that bears all of the hallmarks of a spaceship equated with an ancient and advanced civilization. So perhaps even more disturbingly, these entities are also attributed with extracoitus, alien sex and rape. And this is the title of our second lecture, which is Dragons and Rapists. So as we said before, the personification of the dragon, which is otherwise a seraphim, a type of angel, is in itself correlated in the ancient traditions with abduction. So during the course of this lecture, we shall look at the dragon and its comparison to a rapist in the Semitic and classical languages, and discuss angelic beings that are identified with abduction. In Hellenistic mythology, these strange beings range in breadth from the harpy, lamia and nymph to the religious traditions of the Elohim and their fallen angels, the jinn. I'm going to demonstrate that all of these, apparently diverse entities all spring from a common source defined as a sailor, a conquistador, a type of foreign military power. As we said, this force is deemed as angelic or alien. The terminology is interchangeable. In addition, we're going to explore the idea that the angel is considered in the original languages to be an alien entity and is referred to in the Apocrypha traditions as a watcher. So the Greek word drakon, drakos is eye, and the etymology itself is a derivative from dirk, which is to watch. So the dragon is considered to be a type of sentinel. Now, variously, the dragon is signified as a deity or a god, and we will look at the ancient phenomenon of kidnapping associated with the reptile, a comparison found in its modern-day equivalent, alien abduction. In the previous talk, we discussed in detail the idea that the angel is represented as a sailor, a concept that fits with the UFO as a type of vessel. So once again, the idea that these deities steal people, that they are interested in human genetics, is an idea which goes all the way back to the classical and to the Hellenistic traditions. Again, these angels are deemed as originating from types of vessels. So just to refer to the first lecture, Angelic Sailors, we made a couple of important points, and these points really need to be assimilated when we're looking at the tradition of the angel as a type of abductor. So we can say that the seraphim, which we said was the highest rank of angel, is related to Sapan, a sailor, and Safina, a boat. This is cross-referenced with Malak, an angel, and Malak, a sailor. Again, the terminology angelic host, referring to an alien force or an alien army, is a translation from the Hebrew word Sabaoth, which means a crew of a naval vessel or a naval itinerant. Again, Sabaoth is a derivation from Sevet, crew, and Teba or Teva in the modern Hebrew, which refers to an ark or a vessel. So in other words, we can see that the construct of the alien is deemed as a type of mariner, as a type of sailor. This would be a cosmic or a heavenly sailor. So we also examined the idea that the seraphim, a type of angel or mariner, is personified as the dragon, and we shall now take a look at the etymological and textual evidence to substantiate that the gods are a type of reptilian being. So until now this has been a very controversial idea, but we can see clearly when we begin to deconstruct the etymology that the deities themselves are represented as alien or strange, and that their physical appearance is serpentine in appearance. So the term Elohim is used in the Old Testament as an oponym to describe collectively the gods, and is identical in the ancient languages to a deity or an angel. So the term angel are interchangeable with the deity. And we can see that the angels and the deities themselves are represented as a serpent or a sentinel. So the term to watch is figured with a sentinel, with a type of serpent. So etymologically, the word Elohim is correlated with Erin, a watcher or a shining one, and Awim, a deity or destroyer, denotive of the reptile. The comparison is represented in the Greek analogue Theos, a god, Theros, a watcher, and Therion, a beast, a description which is equivalent to drakon from the verb dirk, to see. Let's then take a careful look at the comparisons between the Greek and Hebrew regarding the definition of a deity represented as a dragon or a seraph. So if we look at the table here, we can see that the Greek word drakon is from the verb dirk, to see, and drakos, an eye. So the watcher personifies a dragon or a type of seraph. We see in the Hebrew that the wordplay Elohim, God, is closely equated with Erin, a watcher, and Awim, the collective word for the serpents or a destroyer. In the Latin, we can see that the term rapier, a reptile, is correlated with rapier, a rapist or one who abducts. So the dragon is represented as a type of abductor. We can see, though, when we compare the etymologies from the Hebrew and the Greek, we see the same polyglottal puns. So the wordplay is identical. So, for example, Theos, a god, is another word or another term for Theros, a watcher. And these are terminologies which describe Therion, a beast. Now, because the etymology of Therion, a beast, is derived from Theros, a watcher, the connotation is of a dragon. And in the biblical symbolism, Therion is often translated as a serpent or dragon. So the two etymologies in this case are synonymous. So in summary, the deity is viewed as a type of watcher, a euphemism used to denote a reptile. So the dragon and the watcher are one and the same. Significantly, the comparison between a watcher and a dragon is also established in the ancient etymology for an angel, suggesting, at least in the ancient languages, a closer alignment between a messenger and a god. So again, the term angel is often used to refer to a deity within the original, in the original Semitic. As we saw in the previous lecture, the angel is depicted as a commander of the angelic or naval host and is symmetrical to the lineage of the king. So the human angelic lineage is described as angelic in origin, in its source. So just as with the sentinel represented as a deity, the analogy between a watcher and the angel is also worth scrutinizing and draws an apparent similarity to a dragon, a non-earthly being which is demonstrated in the following word list. So I'm arguing here that the signifier of the seraph or the serpent, the dragon, these are metaphors used to refer to a being which is considered as alien, which is considered as being different or differentiated from the human animal. So let's then look at the analogy between a watcher and the angel and the dragon. So referring to the slide on the screen, again, if we go back to the Sabaoth, the angelic host, which as we said was Sevet, refer to crew members of naval vessels, the analogy is closely equated with Sopheth, a watcher. So once again, the angelic host is identified with the watcher. As we said before, the watcher would be the Erin, which are closely, which is another term we use to refer to the Elohim, the gods. But once again, the highest order of angel, the seraphim, and seraph, the snake, is once again related to the Arabic verb shaf, which is the verb to see. The Elohim gods themselves are represented as Awim, a serpent or a destroyer, closely equated with the cognate Erin, a watcher. In the Greek, drakon, a watcher, is a cognate of dirk, to see, and drakos, an eye. Once again, the comparison in the Greek would be theos, a god, theoros, a watcher, therion, a beast. So in other words, the watcher signifies a god, and the god or deity is identified with a beast or a dragon. And as we can see on the slide, we have the Illuminati signifier of the pyramid and the eye. The watching eye in this context is a shining deity, so therefore the word Erin, a watcher, is polymorphic. It means to shine. So the watching deity is a type of radiant deity, a shining deity, which is identified with the bloodline of the seraph and the bloodline of the king. We can see also that the pyramid, haram, a pyramid in the Arabic, is a cognate of harim, and the quarters of a woman. So this is again referring to the matriarchal bloodline of a human lineage, but the human lineage which is combined with the watcher, and this knowledge is compartmentalized within the pyramid. So going back to our original point, we see that the Erin, which are the watchers or the shining ones, this is a polymorphic word, actually refers to the Elohim. So the Elohim deities themselves are typically represented as shining, or can be signified with the seraph, which is a signification of the seraphim. Now, from looking at both word lists, it is clear that the watcher appertains to an angel and refers to a deity or a god depicted as a dragon. These entities are compared to crew members of naval vessels and are represented as shining. For example, the designation Elohim, translated generically as the gods, literally the lofty ones, and their counterpart, the Erin, the watchers, are both polymorphic terms and can also be rendered respectively as the shining ones, and suggests a correlation with the seraphim and their cognate, the seraph, a blazing serpent, from the verb saruf, burned, a cognate of seraph, fire. So the seraphim are closely equated with the dragon or a deity. So, as with Sopheth, a watcher, and Sabaoth, the host, the seraphim likewise are depicted as crew members of a vessel, demonstrated in the following etymology. Sapan, a seaman, a deduction from Safina, a ship, and our definitions proxy to the angelic sailors. For example, Malak, an angel, and Malak, a sailor. I've summarized the comparisons in the following word list. So, as we can see, just drawing this comparison between the angel and the sailor, we see that Sabaoth is the angelic host, Sevet is a crew from Teva, which is an ark or a vessel. But again, we see the relationship not only with the angelic host, but the class of angels referred to as the seraphim. So the seraphim is equated with Sapan, a seaman, and Safina, a ship. Again, we can see that the reference to the angels as well, Malak, an angel, is a polymorphic word of Malak, a sailor. So they are one and the same identification. And if we look at the Egyptian carvings as well, we see typically that the Horus, which is the deity of the sun, he is identified with a vessel. And we can see here that that Horus is represented as a falcon. He is a migratory bird. So in other words, Horus is represented as an alien, one who is strange. Now, unequivocally, the angel is depicted as a naval itinerant. In the introduction in this lecture, I wanted to establish very clearly in the audience's mind the connection between a deity or god, variously a sailor, and the dragon. So this terminology between, if you like, the seraphim and Sapan, a seaman, the dragon is deemed as to be a type of sailor, a type of which is closely connected to a type of deity. So there is this relationship, if you like, between the dragon, which is personified as the sentinel or watcher, and is a relationship which also extends to their emissaries, the angels, and their related host. The analogy of a crew member linked both to a reptilian being embodied as a god or a seraph is an important theme in the ancient record. What is more, many of these entities are typically represented as abductors and by reference draw an analogy to the UFO tradition. So when we begin to deconstruct the biblical traditions and the classical mythology, we see that there is ample evidence to suggest that these beings are equated with abduction and is transferred in urban mythology of the UFO. Again, these are strange beings which we might add as serpentine in appearance and are equated with abduction, with kidnapping. So let's then take a look at the concept of the dragon as a rapist and its connection in apocryphal literature to the watchers equated with the angelic host. So a common narrative which is found invariably throughout Judaic discourse and biblical exegesis is that the dragon is a type of divinity. He is a purloiner, and by inference an entity attributed with dispossession. He is one who steals, who takes. He's equated with theft. Historically, the angel is considered as a type of military force and is normative of a despoiler, of a type of rapist and abductor, one who literally steals or carries away plunder. The comparison employed to describe the angelic mariners is as an invading army. So we use this in the Latin, hostis is an invading army, and is demonstrated, as we said, with this idea of hostis as this invasive force. In English, the term hostis is translated as host, the angelic host, by inference the angelic army, but the connotation was originally of a crew member of a vessel. So indeed, the word hostess can be rendered literally as a foreigner and demonstrates that the terminology alien in the ancient languages is synonymous with an angel. So once again, as we found with the term Zari, which is an alien or an angel, we can see also within the rendition of the Latin word hostess referring to the angelic host, the connotation is, however, of a foreigner, of one who is alien. We're just going to quickly look at the comparisons of on the screen. We can see that hostess is an army, in particular foreign or an alien military power. Stratos, again, is the Greek rendition of the Latin, translated as army. And we have Sabaoth, which is the host or the crew of a naval vessel. So, we can say about this that this is a force of heaven, and it's a formidable agency in the Bible which is typically equated with ascension. So these are heavenly beings. Sedulous deliberation of comparative etymology and analysis of textual evidence indicates that the entity, the dragon, variously a deity, seraph or angel, draws many disturbing analogies with the phenomenon known in modern parlance as alien abduction. And it's a controversial viewpoint, but the evidence for this assumption that the watcher of apocryphal literature is the same as the dragon, and by definition a kidnapper, is articulated in the Semitic glossaries. And we're going to look at these glossaries in a moment, but I just want to quickly draw your attention to the slide. And we can see here that in many instances the angels are often represented with children. Now, the reason for this is that the child represents man. So therefore, the human angelic lineage in the Bible is represented as the Nephilim. It's a term which derives from Nephil, which is a giant, and it is translated into the Greek as a titan. And so by definition, the human angelic lineage is typically represented as large. Now, the term giant refers to the Arabic word jibbo, which is Orion. So the inference here is that the human angelic lineage is somehow correlated to the star system Orion. But we see the comparison with a child, which indicates a human lineage. And as we look at these slides, in the lower slide, we can see that this shining deity, which would personify Elohim, again is equated with rape or is equated with abduction of the human lineage, in particular the matriarchal lineage. And there is this obvious affinity with the alien. The alien entity, which in modern UFO, in modern folklore, is equated with kidnapping, with stealing, and with, in particular, there is this connotation of sexual molestation with this phenomenon as well. So So let's look and go into the etymologies to try and substantiate this hypothesis that the angels themselves are equated with abduction. So in the Greek, for instance, the verb dikomi, to look, is a derivative from dirk, to see, and is characteristic of drakon, a watcher. We said the same wordplay in the Semitic is the seraphim, and shaf, which is the verb to see. So the seraphim themselves are serpents and they are watchers, as found in the Greek. Now, a type of century, these entities are depicted as divinities and are repeated in the paranomasia, the term paranomasia meaning a wordplay. It's found in the same paranomasia, theos a god, and theros a spectator, or a watcher, one who watches, and is cognate of therion, a beast. The connotation, however, as we know from the Greek, from comparative etymology, is of the dragon, from dirk, to watch or to see. Now, in Greek, as in the Semitic, the designation theos, a god, implicit of theros, a watcher, is analogous to phos, light. So in other words, the watchers themselves, theros, a watcher, is correlated with phos, which is light. As we observed in the introduction, the corresponding wordplay in Hebrew is Elohim, God, Erin, a watcher or shining one, and Ewim, a serpent or a destroyer. In a literal way, this would be a reptile, a type of abductor. Now, a victor or an overlord, the drakon in the Greek language is cognizant with the verb drasomi, to grasp, and conceptually is correspondent with theft. So I just want to quickly draw your attention to the dragon, which is equated to a watcher and the shining one. And this is very important for us to establish these comparisons in the etymologies, because this gives us an insight into the phenomenon that we are dealing with. So as I said before, the word drakon means a watcher and is equated with the verb dakomai, which is to look, dirk, to see. But again, there is this close comparison with drasomi, which is to grasp. Again, we see in the Greek, theos is a god, theros is a watcher or a spectator, and phos is light. Again, so the signifier of light is used typically to represent therion, a beast. In the context highlighted, this would be a type of seraph. Again, when we go back into the Semitic languages, we have Elohim, a god, Erin is a watcher or a shining one, and Awim, which is a serpent or a destroyer. Now, according to the biblical scholar James Strong, the verb drasomi, to grasp, also means to entrap, and in a figurative sense to abduct. So in this case, we can see that in the Greek there is this connotation that the dragon is a type of abductor. It's played out also within medieval folklore, this idea that the dragon steals the maiden. Now, idiomatic, the dragon can be understood to represent one who abducts. In this sense, it is an entity that fits well within the UFO tradition of abduction and sexual molestation. So I'm arguing here that, as we said before, that a dragon is a watcher, is a deity, and that they themselves are identified with abduction, and that this comparison is found within the phenomenon of ufology. We have these strange beings which abduct people. So there is this consistency which we find within both of these traditions, which are parallel. Now, the thesis that the dragon is a type of abductor is recorded in numerous examples and is perhaps most clearly highlighted in the Semitic dialects. In Arabic, for example, the verb katafa, to abduct, is a compound from the Syrian Arabic root al-kat-afa, which literally means the cult of the serpent. So the idea that the serpent steals is, once again, it's reinforced within the etymology of katafa, which is to abduct. The cult of the serpent is equated with abduction. And it parallels the phenomenon of kidnapping associated primarily with the materialization of angelic beings, known primarily as the seraphim, which is a modification on seraph, which is a snake. Now, comparison of the reptile as an abductor is once again found in the Arabic verb misik, which is to grasp, and masik, which codifies masik, which is a monster. So we can see that one who grasps is similar to a monster in the Arabic. The vernacular is congruent in Hebrew with the noun awim, a serpent or a destroyer. The awim, presumably, is a derivation from the Arabic noun afa, which is a viper. So the awim were a type of seraphim, a type of being which were identified with destruction, with rape, with abduction and pillaging. Now, in Latin, the duplicate correspondence appears in the noun rapere, a reptile, and its cognate, rapere, which is a rapist, as we said, can also mean to abduct, one who pillages, one who steals, one who abducts. So to quickly to summarize this, we can see when we look at the list on the slide, we can see that the cult of the serpent, which is the veneration of these angelic or strange-like beings, are closely accorded with the seraph or the dragon, which we said were personified as watchers, as the shining ones. And we can see that the dragon, drakon, is a close cognate of drasome, which is to grasp. The correspondent wordplay in Arabic would be masik, would be masik, a monster, and misik, which is to grasp. We can see also within the ancient Aramaic, awim is a polymorphic noun, it's a plural noun and it denotes the serpents, but is a close cognate of one who is a destroyer. In the Latin, the correspondence would be rapier, a reptile, and rapier, which is a rapist, one who pillages or abducts. And again, even if we look at the jinn, which are really the seraphim or the fallen seraphim, which are identified with the jinn, we see that there is this comparison with the Semitic jinn from the Arabic etymology, jana, which is to conceal or to hide, but in the Old Semitic, jen is a serpent or a worm. Now, the signifier of the worm is that the worm eats the soil, and the Hebrew word for soil is adamah, which is equated with Adam. So the worm or the jinn is considered to be a type of parasite. But we see in the etymology that jinn is correlated in the Sanskrit with jinna, a conqueror. This would infer a type of reptile. So now, it's important here to note that the signifier of the reptile in the occult tradition, although typically used to denote a seraph or a deity, appears in its fallen state as a jinn, Old Semitic jen, a serpent or worm, and is a classification encoded in the Sanskrit noun jinna, a conqueror. So as we said before, the jinn itself can be signified with jen, a serpent, and this is important because this would equate the serpent with the seraphim, the shining ones, and the jinn are said to be born from smokeless fire. So in other words, we can represent the jinn with the same signifiers with light, which would imply that the jinn and the deity, the seraphim, which is depicted as a type of watcher, a type of angelic being, are one and the same phenomenon. So again, if we just look at this relationship between the jinn and the seraphim, we can say, and it's repeated on the slide, but this is an important point, that the jinn, their origins are said in the Quran to originate from the smokeless fire. And fire is a cryptic signifier of sarefa, the Hebrew word fire, from which we would get the etymology saruf, which is burned. So the seraphim themselves are the shining ones, they are the burning ones, and they are identified. This is an esoteric signifier to refer to seraph, which is a snake. So to summarize so far, we can see that the reptile is seen as a type of abductor, and in the ancient languages is equated with a watcher, variously a god or an angel explicit of a shining one, and is identified with a heavenly sailor. So these terminologies are interchangeable. In addition, the dragon is an animal that shares many comparisons with the modern tradition of UFO abduction, in which strange or non-human beings are said to kidnap unwitting humans. So these are non-localized beings which are said to look like dragons, are said to look strange, and this fits in with the tradition of the alien phenomenon, particularly in relation to abduction. Now, the idea of a deity stealing or taking individuals is also evidenced within the religious scriptures. So this is not only found within the classical etymologies, for example, harpi and apui, which is an abductor, but we're finding this correlation also in the scriptures with the Elohim. And we find this in the book of Enoch, for example. The prophet himself is taken up by the watchers in a spinning whirlwind. Now, the spinning whirlwind is a signifier used to denote something which is circular or round. The connotation is of the circular ones, the ophanim, those belonging to the wheels, which although in ecclesiastical tradition is identified with a grade of angel, in the original text is used to specify an angelic vehicle. So Enoch writes, he offers the following insights. So he says, "After those days, in that place where I had seen all the visions of that which is hidden, for I had been carried away off in a whirlwind, and they had borne me towards the west." Now here we have a medieval slide, and this slide is full of symbology, and I just want to take a little bit of time to deconstruct closely this slide. So, for example, we can see in the sky we have the ophonym, which are the wheels or the circular ones. So this immediately grounds this with an angelic vehicle. And we can see that the people in the background, they're gasping, they're surprised by this strange phenomenon which is exhibited within the sky. But we see also, in addition, there is a pregnant woman. So the connotation is that this offspring is a heavenly offspring. But this is also reiterated by a few more points as well. So, for example, we can see that the man, the older man who is smaller than this woman, he's represented as small because he is not the Nephilim. He's represented as the Adamic bloodline. And we know this for sure because he's wearing red tights. The Hebrew word Adam, red, refers to Adam, so red is used as a signifier of the Adamic bloodline. Now, the leg or the foot is typically used in the Latin to refer to a bloodline. So in the Latin, we don't refer to a genetic fingerprint, we refer to a genetic footprint. And we see that his foot is underneath the lady's dress. So the connotation is of this heavenly bloodline which is combined. And we see this relationship also with the stones which are falling out from his attire. So there is this Greek etymology or wordplay between laus, which is laus, which is a stone, and las, which is people. So mankind, the Adamic lineage, is represented as a stone. There is this correspondence in Latin as well between human and humerus, which is soil, or let's say between the Hebrew Adamah, earth, and Adam. So this is a human angelic bloodline, and this lady of the court, this princess, her lineage is traced back to the ophonym, which is combined with the Adamic bloodline. Now, interestingly, we can see that this older man, who also is wearing a red veil, the term Kadami, the ancient one, is a play on Adam. So he's represented as older because he is one of the ancient ones, one of the older ones, but his bloodline is original to the Adamic bloodline. So now when we get back to the book of Enoch, we can see that in relation to the prophet's inexplicable visions, they are accompanied by strange beings that transport him into alien worlds inside of a cyclone. So the cyclone is this signifier of the circular ones. And this agency forcibly and uncontrollably steals the prophet away. And there's an analogy that parallels the tradition of the reptile, an entity that seizes its hapless victims. So again, Enoch himself is taken away, he is abducted. And as already shown, the depiction of the reptile in the biblical symbolism signifies variously a watcher, deity, or a seraphim. We said that in Greek there was the relationship between theos, God, and theoros, a watcher. Similar comparisons to a snatching deity, a type of dragon, are readily reflected in the Mediterranean folklore. So we're going to look at this idea that the dragon itself is an abductor. So in Greek mythology, for example, there are a number of resemblances between the winged angel, a type of dragon, an entity attributed with kidnapping. So for instance, in the Greek and Roman legends, the designation harpy, which is a type of banshee, in Greek apue, plural, it means the snatchers, is an appellation that is figurative of Erpeton, a reptile. So apue, an abductor, is equated with Erpeton, a reptile. And it's useful here just to once again to refer to these word lists because the word puns and word associations are repeated in numerous languages. So as we said before, drakon is again that there's this relationship with drasomi, which is to grasp. We see in the Greek also Erpeton, a reptile, and apui, one who abducts, one who snatches. In Latin, this would be rapier, a reptile, and rapier, a rapist, pillager, or again, it's one who abducts. In Arabic also, we have masik, a monster, and misik, which is to grasp. So these are describing the same phenomenon, this idea that the reptile is this being, or is represented or personified as this angelic being, this seraphim, this god, this deity, but that they are equated with abduction in the same way that we said that the term awim in Aramaic is a polymorphic word. It means the serpents and is equated with this destroyer. The destroyer, a cognate of the Elohim or the Erin, which are the watchers, the shining ones.